Remember Zach Messler from season 1, episode 12?
The whiskey guy?
The messaging guy.
Boom shakalaka. Same guy. You know what's worse than bad whiskey?
Bad messaging.
And what do they have in common?
They burn.
But our friend Zach knows something special.
How to make both go down smooth.
Every Wednesday, he hosts free clarity rule sessions.
45 minutes, just you and Zach.
Getting your message crystal clear.
So you attract more of your ideal customers.
Head to cloudyrules.com and book your slot.
Because life's too short for bad messaging.
Mm-hmm. We are a podcast for product marketers and B2B SaaS who feel misunderstood of what they do.
From someone who truly gets what you do. And
basically help you feel less like a misfit, being unignorable in your role. Howdy, folks, and welcome to another episode of We're Not Marketers. How are you guys?
Hump day, bro. It's good day. And Daddy's getting another caddy today, so it's a good day.
And when you mean by caddy, are you mean by cat or a golf cart?
Yeah, a caddy to carry my golf clubs. Yeah.
Oh.
Do you actually play golf?
I love golf. I'm just not good at it.
Yeah,
I don't spend much time on it.
Same.
It's the bane of my existence. Yeah, I just show up to the links for the drinks.
Hey!
Exactly. What's the rule? Is it one beer per hole, right?
One beer per swing, I thought, but maybe I'm wrong.
Okay, yeah. That's why you're not good at golf.
Yeah, I'm taking 8 swings per hole. That's why.
Hey, I don't go to the green to count. I go to the green to drink.
Awesome. I wanted to talk about a subject that I feel like our listeners have been asking us about, and we've been going through surface level a little bit. And this is, how can you figure out your superpower as a PMM, and how can you position yourself around it? So I just wanted to send that over right now to you guys. Is there something that you feel could help our listeners to get to that outcome?
Hey, can I hop onto this real quick?
Hop on the hot mic, bro.
Hey, I'm like, this mic must be on fire real quick. So background context around this is that I remember when I was making the pivot back into product marketing in 2020, it's the same question I asked myself. Because as we know about product marketing, it's nebulous, it's broad, depending on what organization you're at, it might be different contexts. So really knowing your competitive strength makes it a lot easier to differentiate yourself, to stand out in those applications, and to better source what organizations or roles you should look out for. With that in mind, I knew for myself as a former sales rep, I really leaned into that as a competitive advantage. When I was interviewing for my first role, that was my tagline. My Minnesota accent came out almost. It was that I'm an internal sales rep. I'm a salesperson. You're building content to help sales win. When you help sales win, product marketing is effective and more influential. So who knew better to hire than a salesperson? So like for me to come to that understanding was a few things I did. Was one, like informational interviews, understanding like where other people working at, what kind of the skill sets that we're looking for, and identifying like, hey, where were gaps? Like similar to what we do as product marketers, what are gaps in those teams? What are areas that I can better shine those skill sets? Second was that looking at my own like internal background. One day I whipped out a sheet of paper and I just started writing down projects I've worked on, wins I achieved, and I called it like an internal win list. From there, I started finding trends of, okay, I'm really good at building projects from like 0 to 1. I'm really good at studying like quota and knowing what I need to do to hit it. I'm really good at storytelling. I've done walking tours. So once I started compiling that, I had a clear narrative and I had points I could back it up. So that's a little just on my take on how I approached it. Just curious, like I'm going to open up the floor to you on just hear like what else you might want to add to that.
I think it was pretty sweet that it was like a little bit easier for you to figure out like, hey, this makes sense. This is where I can thrive. I felt like for me, I actually came in to my like tech product marketing career. For those who don't know, I used to work in B2B manufacturing. But spent a lot of time with sales, like lots of trainings, right? Like we called it training, not enablement. But I thought I was like really good at that because similar to you, I had a sales background, worked with these sales folks for a while. But when I moved into B2B, I quickly realized like product marketing isn't just training sales and isn't just like working on one pagers. I did a lot of those. And so it was like my first real understanding, hey, you've got these other major critical things that you need to learn. And I think for me, that was like the biggest thing for me, finding my passion for a few things and actually being good at them. But that was actually getting to try them. I didn't get a chance to do messaging and positioning at this company. I didn't get the chance to do pricing. I wasn't even allowed to like do something like a product launch in the way that we view product launches. In a lot of ways, I think you just got to do some of those things, right? And you may think you're really good at something, but until you try a lot of these other aspects, you're not going to know. And for me, I think that was like my last full-time role where I could actually do some storytelling, do the positioning, do the messaging, see how that translates in market. But I would have never known that. And I would have definitely probably just kept trying to be a good enabler. And at the end of the day, I know that's not my superpower. Like I know it. So my advice would definitely be like, get out there and try these things. Ask the people who hold the project. If there's a pricing project and you want to be part of it, make sure everyone knows that you want to be part of it. And you may not lead the whole thing, but you can get your hands dirty. You can figure out if it's something you want to keep learning. And then eventually I think you'll start finding your path to what your superpower is.
I think you both shared very great example, and it's always a question too of it's not easy having that time to just have introspection on yourself, on your skills, especially when the imposter syndrome comes into play, right? You're like, okay, yeah, I would like to do this, but then comparison is the enemy of joy. You check what people are happening, especially like on LinkedIn. This is why I have such a love-hate relationship, because you're posting stuff, you feel good about yourself, you're demonstrating your expertise, and then you're seeing someone who's absolutely killing it. And they might be in the same space as you. Maybe you just went fractional and you're seeing more fractional people. But this is especially why it's so important to have your superpower as a PMM, to do your own positioning, and then to be able to leverage that in a way that makes you unique. People still buy from people, right? They buy because they have emotion. They buy because all of this. I like very much what you both said, but what I would add is when you're ending your week, and this is also a good remedy to fix imposter syndrome. When you're ending your week, right? It's like Friday at 4, you have, I don't know, 30 minutes left to your work week. Make sure that during all of the week, what you've been doing, like all of your tasks from whatever project management tool you're using, are laid down, and then identify if those tasks are giving you energy, if they are taking it away from you. In terms of, oh, I did civil enablement, I was on meeting all day, I did some messaging. And then what you'll be able to do is mapping those out in terms of how much you love them and how much impact it can have inside this organization or inside other organization as well. So it will not only help you understand that you're actually doing the work, but it will also help you identify a potential career opportunity or a potential way to niche down as a fractional PMM.
I want to push back on that real quick, because he's saying Friday afternoon. I'm like, when it's 4:30 for me, I'm doing one or two things.
Zach's sending out one pagers to his sales team.
Hey guys, just some light reading for the weekend.
Hey, don't worry about subscribing to another newsletter. I've got this one pager for your Saturday morning. Don't worry.
Hey, while you're at your kid's soccer game on Saturday morning, you can just read this while we're hanging out. But no, there's one or two things. I'm either having a drink or two, or I'm outside rollerblading, or maybe a third bonus one. I'm probably doing both. Like I'm like reflecting back on this episode, because people are gonna listen back. But I think you're a functioning alcoholic. I am not. But Gab, I wanted to add to that point too, because I think one thing that I think we were missing earlier is that even if you don't have the direct experience, like Eric, to your point, I don't have product launch experience. Take a moment to ask yourself, what are the transferable skills from a product launch, and how are you doing that right now? Okay, because like for myself, like I never launched a product, but I have launched an event. Events is like a product. It's an experience. I have sold a deal. I have taken a deal from start to finish. So there are unique experiences that you can pull away that might not be a one-to-one, but they still can transfer over from what a product marketer can do.
I love it. And yeah, I probably need to go outside more and to be more offline, if that means that I should have a drink at 4:30, because usually I keep working. But yeah, I love the way you're putting it, because let's face it, right? And again, I'm sorry if you're working in healthcare and you're actually solving that problem, but we're not solving cancer, right? We are product marketing managers. It's a role that is a lot of input output. So yeah, a lot of that stuff is transferable. If, for example, I don't have a lot of launches experience as well, but I feel like I'm a pretty good project manager. I'm able to do follow-ups, making sure we stay on the line, making sure that projects and shit get done. So then it's about, how do I do that, but I align stuff? How do I come up with that strategy angle? So it's all about, even if you don't have tons of experience, it's better to have a few key projects and a few key metrics to share it, as you guys said, than just playing the kind of angle of one and zeros of, oh, I've been in that field for X amount of years, as a lot of companies are asking. It doesn't mean, if you're someone that worked for the same org for 40 years and that's the only thing you ever saw, what's the input? What's the results of that 40 years of experience at one place? It can almost be seen as obsolete in some cases based on what was your role. So I feel like you need to be aware of that experience is not all of the things. It's also what you do with it and what action can you use to make those results shine, basically.
I really like that. Experience doesn't equate to expertise, because the example, I could sit here and say, hey, I've played basketball for 8 years. That doesn't necessarily qualify you for the NBA draft at a professional level.
Exactly.
Yeah, we're not letting you leave us for the draft. Sorry, Zach.
I played.
We know it's an option.
You've been hooping at the Y. You've been hooping at the local Y. I know, working hard, but we can't let you leave that easily.
It's in the contract, non-compete.
To Dream Chaser. And no, I like that point too. There's definitely skills that you should have already identified, or at least moments where, yeah, this is something where if I applied that same type of philosophy that I did here and moved it over here, it should work well. And I think even a lot of times, right now I'm in a situation where I've got a director at Clue, and we had a conversation just yesterday of how I've got all these big meaty projects and I've been trying to shield you from them. But instead, I want to start bringing you in more because, one, it's good for you, and two, I need to. Right. And if you have a leader who's handling some projects that are, like I said, maybe you're not ready to take on, it's so helpful when you can just jump in and start seeing how things are working instead of just trying to, like, the whole figure it out yourself mentality. So if you do have that opportunity, like, just, you got to speak up. And there's very few times, at least my experience, when the people who are making the decisions are like, nah, sorry, go sit at the kids' table. We don't want you involved here. At some capacity, they'll want you engaged. And I think you can really quickly identify if you like that type of work, if you want to be leading that type of work in the future, or if just that little taste of some individual contributor work within that project, if that was enough to turn you off from what it would look like. So I've had both of those situations happen, particularly around, like I said, storytelling, to be able to say, oh yeah, you know what, I actually do like this element of it. It's a lot more impactful for me on that. I don't do it at the end of the week, but on the things that fill my cup. So I totally resonate with both of your points there, and how you combine them, in my opinion, is that last piece of figure out the shit that you really enjoy and that gets you up to get out of bed in the morning. And that's a good indication that you're on your way to your superpower.
One thing I wanted to call out really quick here is, I think this is a common mistake that we make, when we pivot into a new space, and this goes with any new skill you're learning, is that information overload versus focusing on what do I need to do right now to break in. I like to call this like the sharpening the saw concept. Like, your job is that you want to cut that log. Your focus is this is making that sure that saw is razor sharp to get the job done. You're not taking this saw to like the butcher. You're not going to woodworking, getting like a nice like fancy handle. Like you're focused on that one aspect because that's what's going to get the job done. When you're thinking about breaking into like your role, what is your saw? What is that edge for you? And like I said earlier, that was sales. When you're breaking in, everyone already knows you're not going to have every single skill as a product marketer when you're making that pivot. Yilin said this when we had in a previous conversation when she shared like one of her coaching clients was making the pivot from CPG down to product marketing. And she leaned into her skill on monetization, knowing that was a gap that role was looking to fill that she was looking for. She seeked out the role, she positioned on her strength, and she got the job. You're going to learn these skills as you pick up. So don't over fixate on learning every single thing. Have a broad base, but I'll also lean into your competitive strength to help you stand out.
It's almost, I don't remember the model, but you guys probably heard about the T-shaped marketers.
Yes.
Which is you need to know a little bit of design and SEO and ads and all of this, but then, oh no, this person is super good in product marketing, for example. This person is super good in that field or whatever. And it almost became like a trident a little bit instead of a T, that you have 3 in-depth element that you know you're good at, right? But then I feel like this question of figuring your superpower as a PMM has like a twofold aspect a little bit. And what I mean is, if I'm a consultant, if I'm a fractional PMM, I need to own it, right? My point of view of this is you need to not market yourself as a fractional PMM for the good reason that I don't think everyone understands what a PMM is. And I think that it's important to show your special sauce, show your superpower by doing it. So that's the aspect on the consulting side. And on the in-house side, I think it's about, if you're in a startup, whatever where you are, you still have those guardrails that you need to fit in. So I think it's even more important to have that definition of, I'm good within those 3 things, right? Yeah, I just think all of that is just bringing me to, if you're on the consulting side, I think you should be more focused on trying to get people ready to pay for those set of services before having that service develop. And we heard it with a guest last week. If you are focused on having the perfect offer, you'll be very miserable because your offer will change. It will iterate. You'll always be changing it. So focus on getting people ready to pay you right now and then figure it out. And try to, again, your goal is the seesaw. Your goal is to make a perfect job. But don't go at creating that perfect offer and then trying to look for that demand.
Yeah. And I want to piggyback on that because Gab said, don't position yourself as a fractional product marketer. Don't look at my LinkedIn profile headline because that's what it says right there. But I do agree with that too, because one, like when you can specialize in a space, it's easier to sell what you do and then source the clients that are aligned to that problem. But at the same time, even if you don't have a niche, like there's no qualms of starting from a fraction. That's what I want to push back on. Is if you don't have that niche, yes, start a fractional. I remember talking to a friend named Sarah Eddy. For that year, she used that time to figure out what she liked and what she didn't like, similar to what Eric was saying. Oh, I really like launches. I really hate analyst relations. And based off of that, you can pivot and figure that out too. So use that to explore your breadth too as well. But then, like Gab, what you're saying too is that there is power in that niche itself once you nail it.
Yeah, and one thing I'd say too is, as I start to figure out the things that I love, force yourself in that direction, right? Not everything, of course, is going to just be able to come up in your workday, or if you are trying to go fractional, you're not just going to have an unlimited list of clients. But there's a lot of these things that we would do for a paid perspective that we can go and practice on ourselves. Gab, we've done messaging teardowns before. You've even made some satirical versions of what really bad homepages could look like, right? Like you can go and do some of this work that may never see the light of day anywhere. You may not even ship it to the company whose work it's for, but you're that sword, that or your saw, whichever S word you want to use, whichever weapon you want to bring
to your messaging review.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that people aren't doing, right? Like, when was the last time you tried to go reposition someone else's product, or went and talked to someone's ICP to figure out what their pains and problems were and things like that? You can do a lot of these things and flex those skills, not in the normal framework of your workday.
A beautiful thing about product marketing is that every person can come in with a unique point of view. A really hard thing about product marketing is that every person can come in with a unique point of view.
Love it.
And I think one differentiating factor for me that I've noticed that's helped me stand out is knowing how to back up your work with evidence, with data, with proof, and know how to tell that in a compelling way. Because I think this is not only a problem within product marketing, dare I say it, it happens in marketing too, where everybody has an opinion, but when you're said, back it up, there's not much to.
Exactly. Yeah, I think you said a quote and I made a post about it a while ago, but it was like everyone, when you write copy or the headline, everyone becomes an English
PhD.
major. They always have something to say, and you're like, guys, like it's always a question of, okay, so if we don't find the right words, this person will die a little bit. The stakes seem so high. It's a copy. It's a word. Who the F cares about that? Yes.
Never have I ever in my 5 years of selling to prospects and customers have had a customer come up to me and be like, you know what? You used the wrong version of there. I can't move forward with you all. If you're that careless with your word choice, heaven forbid how careless you're going to be with my business. It's a no deal.
I know. I don't even use punctuation in my LinkedIn posts. Like,
okay, you know what? You're taking it too far right there. Use your punctuation.
I'm just saying, no one's ever been like, hey, I saw your LinkedIn post. You don't use any exclamation points, periods, anything.
I brought up homonyms. You're bringing on run-on sentences.
No,
those two are not the same.
But no one's ever been like, hey, yeah, I think that's going to translate poorly to when you actually have to start writing copy for in a business setting.
Do you write your copy like a LinkedIn post? You can't work here.
Yeah, exactly. And like the what's it called? The structuring to just to make the readability easier. Okay, I get that it gets more impression and stuff, but who cares? The important part is the content. The important part is the essence of what you're
you get
writing,
the message
right?
across. No one goes to LinkedIn to read academic work.
And that out there. I was gonna say, guys, like I think we've now gotten to the point where we've helped figure out what's the magic sauce that you bring. But I think it's just as equally important as we start talking about what do you do with that? How do you make that uniquely you? Whether that's going for your next job, or of course, you're trying to carve your own niche as a fractional. How do you then take your superpower that you've identified and the stuff that fills your cup and make sure that is what you're identified as, and that's how you can position yourself in those other opportunities?
That's a good question, and I can maybe answer it very promptly, but I'm launching something on Monday. And again, this episode won't be on the same timeline, so it's fine. If you check my LinkedIn while listening to this and it's different, it's because I failed, and it's a good thing, right? You need to experiment a lot, you need to fail a lot. But the angle that I'm playing here is, right now I'm doing a research project. I have around 30 plus hours spent into just reading on messaging, trying to get as much information possible on the context of what is considered messaging. And it's overlapping positioning, it's overlapping copywriting, it's overlapping communication. I dig down a couple of old university books on what is marketing, what is communication, what is strategic messaging, what is strategic marketing, to come up with that understanding. And when you spend as much time researching something, you learn to love it even more because you're seeing different angles. So if you figure out something, I'm not saying screw everything out and let's just do that, but research it, understand the facets, understand the context of it, and it will just make you realize that, hey, I'm built. The essence of what I'm doing is very gratifying, right? I'm just doing messaging, but the angle that I'm doing it with has a lot more impact than what I was expecting when you see the whole picture. So that would be my very actual and relevant tips on that right now.
Yeah. I'm going to give you a different take on this, is that start sharing your work. I think that's one challenge with that. What comes down to when we go into a career, we were coached in not sharing our work because it's a sign of modesty, and that's wrong. I think when we can celebrate the work we're doing, it does two things. One, it brings us more confidence in our own expertise. And two, it helps other people along the way to understand a perspective or a point of view. And that's what I look back to when I think back to when I started posting on LinkedIn. It was a space for me to about what I'm working on, write through things that I'm struggling with, write through things that were really going really well. And over time, I started like building this like little community, like these like friendships, connections. I feel like this is how we got connected too. And it's, don't go on LinkedIn with the sole focus of, oh, I'm here to create leads or I'm here to close my next business, find my next opportunity. Go out there with the intent of building that relationship, because you never know what that relationship could lead to next. And how to do that is sharing about things that you care about, sharing about things that people are struggling with that you might be helpful on, and just talking about things that you enjoy. Maybe rollerblading. Yeah, talk about rollerblading. I'll talk to you about that.
It's a social network, right? Not a lead gen or a business network. And I feel like this is very important.
Yeah, but also go outside too, because if you're working on Friday till 4:30 p.m., I'm like,
yeah, go outside.
yeah, go,
Don't be like
yeah,
me.
get them vitamin D, and not the supplements. I'm talking about the sunlight.
And I've got a less maybe like tangible suggestion, but to me, at least personally, I think it's like just as important as like practical advice. So I think once you've found your superpower, like the most important thing that you can do is identify as yourself as that superpower. And what I mean by that is stop thinking of yourself as a product marketer if you are an expert in messaging like Gab, right? Stop thinking of yourself as a product marketer if you're super savvy at making that connection between sales and everyone else. I think if you can identify yourself as, that's like step one. Wake up in the morning, view yourself as this, and then everyone else will start viewing you that same way. Number two, I can share a little bit of a story with this, is you got to find your ultimate confidence. I think you're going to have good and bad days, but you have to have unwavering confidence in yourself and your superpower, and that people want both of those things. And so went and actually I'm buying a brand new car, my first new car ever with 0 miles. And do I need one? No, not really. Does my family need one? No, not really. We're doing fine as a 1-car household. However, when I got in that thing as a loaner last week, my confidence shot through the roof. I felt like $1 million. So I'm not telling anyone that they need to go out and do something that drastic, but make sure you're filling yourself up with those things that give you confidence. And when you start to feel yourself waver, fill yourself up with one of those confidence boosting activities. And make sure that, again, when you wake up, you identify yourself as him or her version of that product marketer, not just a product marketer.
That's it. I'm buying a car.
And then go buy a sweet car.
Or buy a sweet pair of rollerblades.
Yeah. Actually, highly recommend Zach's therapy as opposed to mine.
But the last thing I was going to add, because I know we're wrapping up right now, is that, Eric, like you said, positive affirmations. There is power in that. Don't look at what you're looking to do next from a future point of view. Say it as if you've got it right now, and that orients your mindset and habits around going in that direction.
That's beautifully said. I think we covered the subject pretty well, but thanks, guys. I hope this episode will be very helpful to our listeners into how to find your superpower and really differentiate yourself, because it's all about differentiation. And that's about it. Thank you for another episode of We're Not Marketers.
Yeah,
right, see you
baby.
guys.
I'm feeling powerful now. Later.
Thank you for listening to We're Not Marketers. If you liked what you heard, please subscribe, review our podcast, and share this episode with other PMMs. Thanks again, and see you soon.